My name is Zach Saylor. I'm a staff engineer at Apple, and this is Abby. Abby was a master's student, and so what we're going to be sharing here is a demo on some work that she's been doing, some experimental work on making AI collaborators, real-time collaborators, inside a Jupyter Notebook. So this is building on work that we've been doing out in the open source with a community of people to create the building blocks. We'll talk a little bit about this at the end of the talk, but the building blocks for AI in notebooks, and then taking those building blocks, stitching them together, and exploring kind of a new experience that we have yet to see in other projects. So I'm going to do my best to stay out of the way and give her the floor to give the demo here. But I also want to say that Abby, after finishing her master's thesis, got a job at Apple as well. So she will be starting at Apple in January. So we're both representing that organization. So cool. All right. With that, Abby, take it away.
Okay. Hello. Thank you, everyone, for being here. There's so many of you. Yeah, so this project kind of started with a question, and that was, what might interacting with AI look like in the future or even tomorrow? And our hypothesis was probably the mode of interaction will not be through a chat. And this hypothesis wasn't completely unfounded. We had decent reason to feel this way, and largely it was because of our own experiences with traditional in-chat interactions and kind of the friction points there. So if you're like me and you use AI probably every single day, you're very much familiar with this kind of cycle of interaction. It starts in a chat box, you type out a prompt, your AI thinks, and then it thinks, and you are left waiting, and eventually it kind of spits out this long-winded answer, and you can decide if you like that or not. And you can, whenever you want to get back on this kind of carousel of impatience, you can. And that's fine, but it's definitely imperfect, especially when you use AI a lot and you're in this cycle over and over again. You start to realize that there are some sticking points, and specifically kind of some fatigue that we're noticing. We're calling it chat fatigue. It's just kind of the tiredness associated with constantly switching between your workspace and your AI. It's always gathering context for your prompts, and then often what you find, or what we found, is that we're reprompting for the same behavior over and over again. And the truth is, some things probably just shouldn't require a prompt. You may have found yourself saying, I've told you this so many times, do I have to tell you again? I mean, I hope you speak more respectfully to your AI. That's another conversation. But the point still stands. It's kind of exhausting to ask the same thing over and over again. So our kind of experiment was, okay, once we trust our agents, once they're good enough to do what we ask them to do when they are prompted, what might it feel like? What might the experience be like if we interacted with them in a way where they were proactive instead of reactive? What if they were anticipating our needs before we even had to ask? And the kind of abstraction that underpinned all of this was personas provided by Jupyter AI. That's kind of the entry point into interacting with some kind of intelligent being inside of Jupyter. They're really easy to interact with. You can mention them in the chat. So yeah, without further ado, let's show you what a proactive persona might look like.
Hope the demo gods are on our side.
Yeah, really, everyone shoots some good vibes. Okay, so let me delete that and that. Yeah, let me just open a new chat. Nope, not fresh chat. I was very prepared, as you can tell. Okay. So let's start down here. Is that relatively clear? Yeah. So here I'm just going to mention a persona. You can see I have a list of them. We have some kind of collaborative personas, but then also some big names like Claude Code, ChatGPT, and Gemini. Zach, who's your favorite celebrity?
Justin Timberlake.
Okay, let's see. How old is, I should have known that. It's Justin Timberlake. Forever. And then we can ask chat, okay, can you see if Gemini agrees with you? And so I'm calling out to ChatGPT. Command plus. Oh. Okay, so great. ChatGPT answered, and then Gemini, and then called Gemini, and Gemini was like, yep, that's true. Awesome, so now we can see that personas can collaborate or with each other. Now let's ask for maybe a harder question. Gemini, can you open a new notebook in this environment? And so Gemini does not have any tools rigged up to it, so it shouldn't be able to, but it has knowledge of other personas that can. Sometimes it calls Claude Code. In this case, it called my code cell editor. So I'm mentioning the code cell editor, which now responds and is calling the tool to open a new notebook. So now we can see that personas have knowledge of other personas, but also what tools they have and the shortcomings of their own capabilities. So let's open this up. And now let's do some collaborative editing on this notebook. I'm going to call some commands to a couple of my collaborators, tell them to start a collaborative session. File, this is untitled 2, I think. Just going to copy that. Great, so I've got a code cell editor. Let's get a markdown cell editor in there. And then also a bug fixer, and see how those work together. Great, so let's just get started. I'll try to do some imports, pandas as PD, import sklearn or something. So I have some typos, obviously, so I'm gonna run that cell, and there's some errors, but that triggered my bug fixer. I'm just gonna look at the notebook and see if it can fix whatever those errors are. And now it's typing in the cell to fix those errors. Yay, bug fix. Awesome. Great. And now let's leave a to-do comment to my code cell editor. Let's say load in the airlines data set from the data directory. And I'm going to leave that cell, and as I'm leaving that cell, it triggers my code cell editor, which is now looking through the notebook, seeing what data I have. And it should hopefully load in the airlines data set. Awesome. Great. Awesome. Okay. And now maybe a markdown cell. Let's talk about the data. This is something I could ask Zach to do, maybe, or someone else. Discuss the features of the data set. Awesome. Now that triggers a different editor. That's my markdown cell editor. So I left a markdown cell. And I can start working on a different task. I know many of you probably flew here today, and this is a airlines data set. So let's see try to use statistics to compute the probability that a flight leaving San Diego on Thursday will be delayed. Great, and now my markdown cell editor is done, so I'm going to move to that one and run that. That looks great. Now my code cell editor should be triggered, and if he does what he's supposed to, he will recognize that this is a statistics question, and he should ask the statistician for help. Great, he did that, so we can see the code cell editor looked at the cell, saw the task, realized that this was outside of the code cell editor's expertise, mentioned the statistician, and gave him some context to see, to add context to the question, to ask about statistics, I suppose. The statistician responded with some helpful information, I hope, and now the code cell editor is using that to now write a cell, hopefully computing the probability that our flights on Thursday will be delayed or not. Fingers crossed. While it does that, we can add another cell. Let's see. Awesome, done. How did that go? Okay, ooh, 52%. That's not looking good for us.
It's government shutdown.
Great, and now we can see, our code cell editor is having a conversation with our statistician. Well, they may have a conversation for a while now, who knows? Are they done? Great. Now I'll ask one last thing, write test cases. And hopefully that will trigger my code cell editor to realize I need to write some test cases for this notebook, and there's a test case writer, so hopefully he asks him to do that instead of himself, but great, awesome. Okay, so that's kind of the demo. As we can see, personas are working on the notebook, working with each other. Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe the important thing to highlight here is that we're working with multi-agent, but it's not happening in the background. It's happening right there in your face, like as if they're other people. And so one of the things that I think an ethos of Jupyter, right, is that a human is really heavily in the loop with the interactive computing cycle. If we're going to bring AI to that system, our hypothesis is that it should still feel pretty natural and pretty human-like, meaning that we were going to mention them. We're going to talk to them like they're another person, rather than just have a chat per one agent. Agents are just other collaborators sitting alongside other humans. And so while we couldn't show you a demo because trying to put it into a cloud where we have multiple users working on it would take a lot more infrastructure. But you can imagine a world where within this chat we have people and agents connecting and collaborating together. And that experience feels no different than if you just had 2 humans or 3 humans working together. And so that was kind of our hypothesis, was to build a system that feels as natural as that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think even like in the early days when we saw the first really crude version of this, it was a huge realization that this is definitely like a distinctive shift from the traditional in-chat kind of cycle of experience to AI as exactly what Zach said, like an actual collaborator, just like another human. And so from here, like this was the quest. Okay, how do we make good collaborators? How do we make collaborators that are specifically not annoying? That's kind of been a through line in all of this. I can't say that we have achieved that, but it's definitely a goal, is to not create annoying collaborators. And so one of the ways that we tried to do that was by asking ourselves, how do humans normally collaborate in Jupyter documents? What are we familiar with? There's a couple things. First, we collaborate in the notebook, right? Obviously, that's where the demo was. We also work simultaneously. There's real-time collaboration happening. And then what I found, I think, most interesting in all of this was that the notebook itself kind of becomes the medium of dialogue. We kind of, maybe without realizing it, leave and scaffold some intent through the document. I might say, to do, write a test case, and then Zach responds with a cell. And so this, what is this notebook becomes this kind of living, breathing chat document, which creates a really obvious place for intelligence to come and work in that document with us. And so to create these collaborators, there was kind of a couple of things that we needed that Jupyter offered kind of out of the box. The first was real-time collaboration. That's for humans, but now it could be for agents as well. And then, as I said, that notebook document is kind of this living, breathing chat with these individual cells where it's really easy to kind of throw a persona to go work on an individual cell. These kind of atomic units of thought. And so back to this question, I said, how do we make an agent, or once an agent is good enough, well, how do we make good agents? How do we make a good collaborator? We've kind of decided there's 3-ish guidelines so far that we think makes a good collaborator. The first is they should be an expert. They should be the expert in whatever their domain is. They should also be able to collaborate with each other and delegate. And then lastly, they should really make use of the context within the notebook. Why is it important for personas to be experts? I mean, first, it would be awesome if whatever they did, they were very, very good at it, and much, much better than a generalized persona. But then also, when a persona knows exactly what its knowledge base is, then it makes really obvious for when it should pass on the baton to someone else, when it realizes it encounters a task or a prompt that's beyond its skill level. So if our personas know when they should delegate, then they also need to be able to. And again, Jupyter came to the rescue. It's really easy to @mention other personas in the chat. This is great because it doesn't even require a tool call for personas to talk to each other. They simply have to add the mention in their message. So it's really, really easy. And then lastly, they should definitely be leveraging Jupyter's rich context. It's more than just what's in the cells, like the code. It's also the outputs, which can be really rich for analysis. But then also there's a lot happening behind the scenes that agents could make use of, one being resources and resource allocation. if you give a persona knowledge of and access to the resources you might have to spin up for a particular notebook, it can become really, really powerful in anticipating your needs and the notebook's needs before you even have to ask. And we've just started to scratch the surface on how we can make use of Jupyter's context. But yeah, I think this could be really cool. Thanks for coming.
All right. And then
Oh,
just a few closing things. So like I said at the beginning of the talk, that everything Abby showed was experimentation she's been doing as part of her thesis, but it's built on these blocks that we have been working on in the open source community. And so there is a GitHub organization called Jupyter AI Contrib. If you haven't seen it, you should totally check it out. And what we did here was we looked at some work that had been done within the Jupyter community already called Jupyter AI, and looked at how do we make this thing more sustainable and easier to contribute to over the long run. And so we took that project and figured out what are the components that we could pull out and make them stand on their own so that when people want to go and build an AI experience around notebooks that might be custom to their own use case or their organization's use case, they could take those blocks and stick them together in a custom way. And so that work has been done. It's in this org. Thank you to the AWS team who's put a lot of energy into making this project good, solid to contribute to and robust and production ready. So go check out that org. Come join us. We're over there collaborating on that org. Anybody else is welcome to. The goal is really to take the things that we can share as a community for building these kinds of experiences, build them out there together, and then you go build the experience using those components that you desire. And so there's a list of some things that we've done over there. So join us there. And then the last thing is that we are hosting a sprint on AI, Jupyter AI, this Thursday. So after Wednesday, the last of the sessions, there's a full day sprinting on Thursday, and we're going to try to host and facilitate the AI portion of it. So if you're interested in working on stuff that Abby's been doing or working alongside her, or if you want to work on any of the components we talked about in Jupyter AI Contrib, we'll be doing it on that day. So we'd love to have you guys come join us, and that collaboration goes beyond JupyterCon. So we're planning to do that over the next year really heavily. We're also working on putting together a series of workshops throughout 2026 where we are going to try to get people in person where they're at, kind of all over the world, hosted by organizations from the Jupyter Foundation, so we can get people working on these ideas. And so look out for those, look for that calendar, and there's a lot of opportunities to get involved. So we'd love to see you there. With that, thank you guys.